Hello, I'm Dr. Barrett. I am your host this evening for our meditation research update. I have had an opportunity recently to become one of the doctors who is helping with Joe Dispenza's meditation research. So, for those of you who don't know anything about Dr. Joe, he is a chiropractor who has created a new way of meditating. He offers retreats for people all over the world, and they see some pretty incredible health transformations. Really, the purpose of his work is to help people move the needle on their health, also on their lives. But he gives stories of incredible transformations that people have undergone as a result of doing these meditation workshops. Now, he's got a very specific type of meditation that he does. And I would like to talk to you about that a little bit tonight, and we'll have a chance to experience it as well. So let me pop into the chat here and see what everybody is saying about the purpose of meditation, mindfulness. I love that. Yeah, kind of being in the present moment, paying attention, entering into a relaxed state. Yeah, absolutely. That's part of the purpose. Center myself and separate myself from physical feelings. Ooh, good. Okay. A little bit of separation from the physical body. Love that. Experience being alive in this form. Beautiful. Yeah. To release, relax, renew. Yeah, that's a good purpose of meditation. Improving mind-body connection. Love that. Be present. Awesome. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. What we're going to talk about is a little bit of a very specific focus of a very specific type of meditation and some of the research that the group has gotten. So let me share screen and begin our presentation. All right, mind-body solutions for migraine. What is the purpose of meditation? Many of the things that you guys suggested are about this type of meditation. These are traditions that have been handed down from one human to another over the generations. And it is very much about being calm. It is about calming the mind. It is about being in the present moment. It is about detaching from physical sensations of the body and coming into a different part of our being. Now, I am particularly interested in this part of meditation. So this is a super cool kind of functional MRI where they can look at the firing of the brain. So this yellow bit here, that is a part of the brain called the somatosensory cortex. It is part of the brain that processes pain signals. So what they can do is look at how the brain is firing. That's what a functional MRI does. And then they can make a 3D image out of it. It is the coolest type of research. I think it's absolutely amazing. So what we see is that when you put a person in pain, and you guys, I do not think I would volunteer for any of these studies. They do vaguely horrible things to people to induce pain, like thermal pain, extreme hot or cold, or they'll use sharp things to cause pain. I don't think you're going to see me in any of those kinds of MRI scanners anytime soon, but these are probably poor college students who are there because they needed the money. So anyway, you give somebody pain, and then you put them into this type of scanner at rest, and you can see this part of the brain light up, okay? This means that the brain's pain signals are active. Now, if you give that person the same amount of pain and have them do a certain type of meditation, you can see that that structure no longer lights up. Super cool, right? So this is one of the more fascinating things that we have been able to find from functional MRI studies of what is happening in the brain during meditation. So what other kinds of tools can we use to see what's going on in the brain? There are so many. And when you go to one of Dr. Dispenza's retreats, this is the type of testing that they will often do, in addition to the functional MRI testing that we just looked at. You can do a cheek swab, and as many of you know, you can get your DNA from that. Many of you are my students who have had DNA testing done. Super easy. Just spit into a tube, and then you can get your DNA from there. Interestingly, you can also look at epigenetic changes, right? Our DNA is like a piano keyboard, okay? The keyboard's always the same, but which part is playing varies. That's what epigenetics is. Different parts of that keyboard being played. When the keyboard is played, you can imagine the sound that the piano is making as the proteins that your DNA is making. That's basically what your DNA does. It makes proteins for your body and turns that into different things. So this is one good way to collect information. We can look at proteins as well. Proteins that are in the urine. We can look at also metabolites of things like neurotransmitters. We're going to have a presentation on that coming up in a couple of weeks. We can also look at blood. That allows us to check the proteins directly, not just where they're coming from in your DNA. And it allows us to look at those epigenetic markers as well. And then we can also look at stool samples, and that gives us a little bit more information about the microbiome. You can't quite see that here on the bottom. The bottom's cut off, but that is another type of testing that they will commonly do. So what have they found in checking all of this information on thousands of people all over the world and just seeing what the body does in a week of meditation? This stuff is fascinating, you guys. Okay, now this needs a little bit of explanation, so be patient with me here. What changes in the body do we see with the control group versus novice mediators? So here's what they did. They took the control to be a group of people who are sort of hanging out at the hotel where the meditation conference is taking place, but they're not doing the meditations. Maybe they're doing a little bit of work, hanging out at the pool with the kids, whatever they're doing. These are people who were not engaged in the meditation, and they volunteered to have all this different type of testing done. You can see the response in the control people here, here, and here. Now, these three main categories of substances are what they were looking at. Don't get caught up in the terminology. Just think of this as about 3,000 substances in all of those types of fluids that I was just talking about that they were looking at, okay? So here we've got the response in the control people. Now, these two lines here are two standard deviations above and below. So if you remember, we're all on a bell curve, right? And then the two standard deviations are kind of at one end of the bell curve or the other. That's what they're looking at. So if you imagine this being kind of the bell curve in here where my cursor is moving, then this is a huge amount of change up here at one tail of the bell curve. This is a huge amount of change over here at the other end of the bell curve. Now, what you can notice just by looking at this, even super quickly, is in the novice meditators who came to the retreat, you can see that there's a way more blue over here and over here and over here than what you're seeing in the control group in that same area, here, here, and here, right? Now, here's the fascinating thing. Every single one of these blue dots, this one, this one, this one, this one, all of these guys in here, this one, this one, this one, this one, this whole cloud of blue, every single blue dot represents a statistically significant change in a protein. All right. So they looked at almost 3,000 different compounds. Many of them changed in the positive direction. Some of them changed in the negative directions. There's no uniform kind of definition that getting more of a protein is good or bad. Sometimes getting less of a protein is good. If it's a bad protein, you want less of it. If it's a good protein, you want more, right? So you can see that there is just a huge number of substances that change in a huge way after just 1 week of meditation. Now, I personally find this to be fascinating because I feel like so many people think that you have to lock yourself in a cave and meditate for 10 years to really notice any changes in your health or your experience of life or any of the things that you may have as a goal. Clearly not the case. This was 7 days of meditation for people who had never meditated before, and look at all of the biological changes that they're seeing. Now, the next question is, if you can just randomly increase thousands of different proteins with meditation, can we direct that? So, can we meditate on certain helpful proteins? They did another super fascinating study to help answer this question. Here's how they did it. It's a very clever design. They had two groups of people, Group A and Group B. And what they did is they told each group to meditate on different proteins, okay? They told Group A, hey guys, we want you to meditate on this thing called Serpin A5. Here's what it looks like. We're not going to tell you what it does, and please don't Google it on your free time. Just meditate on Serpin A5. We also want you to meditate on interferon regulatory factor 1. It looks like this. ATP synthase F1 subunit gamma, yada, yada. You get the idea. So they're showing images of these proteins on the screen. They're saying increase these in your body, all that kind of stuff, right? Group B, they say, hey guys, we want you to meditate on also Serpin A5, right? They had one real protein in here, but the rest of them were fake. They literally made these up. They made up the pictures, they made up the names. Now, why would they do this? Because they're trying to see if there's any intentionality. Okay, so if they just tell people, hey, meditate on this stuff, and we know that thousands of things are going up anyway, well, then there's no difference, right? How do you know if it was just a random increase in all proteins as a result of something that happened during that week of the meditation versus an intentional increase in what you're actually trying to increase in your body, right? Does that make sense? All right. So what they found is that people in Group A were actually able to increase all these proteins, and people in Group B did not. Now, why is that? Because they're meditating on stuff that's not real. They're trying to increase proteins in their body that don't exist. So this is sort of a placebo. So what they saw this in the sense that the people in Group A made huge amounts of Serpin A5. The people in Group B did not, because you can think of it as the message was diluted, right? They were trying to focus on all these things, but they couldn't really do it because the body knew that's not a thing. That's not inside me. I can't carry out the message that you are trying to get me to carry out. On the other hand, when people were meditating on things that were a legitimate message, the levels actually went up. Now, what is Serpin A5 and why does that even matter? This is an article that was published just this year in a reputable medical journal. And so if the question is, can we increase the levels of certain proteins in our body? The answer is yes, we can. This is where some of this information was published, okay? So what does Serpin A5 do? Serpin A5 prevents viruses like COVID from entering our cells. Super cool, right? So here's what they did. They took the blood of the people who were told, make Serpin A5 as part of their meditations. They took their blood at the end of the week and they stuck it in a petri dish and figured out what effect it had on COVID and related viruses. And what happened is that blood actually prevented the COVID from getting inside the cells. Crazy, right? All of that happening without a vaccine, without any viral exposure, nothing at all. They literally took the blood from the people who were told to increase serpin A5, stuck it in a petri dish, and it prevented COVID infection. They took control blood also, stuck it in the petri dish, nothing happened. The COVID infected the cells at the usual rate. So this has been a very interesting kind of shakeup to the conventional medical community. Of course, there are people who just dismiss this research, but there are also people who are thinking, you know what? That is just like there. I mean, there are thousands of articles showing the benefit of meditation on subjective measures. Now we're able to show the benefit of meditation on objective measures. So hopefully over time, this will sort of start to sink in as a validated method of shaping your physiology, which I think is super cool. All right, let's move on. So here is the method that Dr. Joe teaches and that he is asking us to share with our patients. This is something that I teach the students in my online courses. So for those of you who are from the courses, this method will look familiar. We do it every second Tuesday. And the method it's a 3-part method. So we start with the breath, all right? Long, slow inhale and exhale. And what you do is you imagine that the breath is going straight into your heart. Now, this slower breathing has the effect of activating the parasympathetic nervous system to calm the body down. So remember the whole fight or flight thing? Fight or flight is stress. Parasympathetic is recover. So it puts your body into recovery mode through the breath. And then the next thing we do is you imagine your future healthy self and what that would feel like. Yes, this is literally using your imagination. It feels unfamiliar at first. So for those of you who are going to do this for the first time, it will feel fake. That is okay. When you are laying down new neural pathways in your brain, it doesn't feel familiar because it's not. It hasn't happened before. Now, over time, as you continue to fire those neurons, they will eventually wire together, and this will start to feel more natural. All right. And then the third step of the method is to deepen into those emotions to increase something called heart-brain coherence. All right, now let me just show you a little picture about what heart-brain coherence is. This is a heart math device. It is attached to the earlobe, and it measures the coherence between the brain and the heart. Okay, these are electrical signals that you can extrapolate from the pulse that it's collecting in your ear. Super cool. Also something that I teach the students in my courses how to use. So that is the data that I'm about to show you. That little device I just showed you can make different kinds of waves, okay? This is an example of low coherence. This is an example of high coherence. Now, low coherence means that the electrical activity of the heart and the brain are not working very well together. All electrical activity generates a field, right? If you remember high school physics, any current has a field around it, a magnetic field. So when you are in low coherence, the heart and brain electrical stuff is just not working together right. And from that state, you cannot be effective in making change in your body. All right. So there are a couple of ways we can notice the low coherence. You can see not much of this tracing is in the green. It's kind of in blue and red. And then this wave down here is very irregular. It's kind of random and jagged and just kind of irregular looking. So this is an example of low coherence between the heart and the brain as measured by the heart math device. All right. Now, this is an example of what high coherence looks like. When you're in high coherence, the electrical energy of the heart and the brain are in sync. They're working together well. This is where the magic happens for healing your body. This is what we're trying to teach people how to do so that you can shift the physiology, shift all those proteins, and shift the MRI, the functional MRI appearance that I showed you earlier in the presentation. Here's where it's happening. So you can see that the device shows you, if you're in high coherence, you're mostly in green, and look how regular this is. This is, it says it's HRV, it's not really, it's an extrapolation related to HRV. And what this wave means is that your heart and your brain are in sync electrically. All right, everybody. Wanted to also give you a way to deepen your experience with meditation. I am hosting a retreat in late January, early February near Puerto Vallarta. It is called the Headache Haven Retreat, and you can find details at headacheretreat.com. So let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to do here. We are, of course, going to meditate. We're going to dive deep into some of the work that I have been explaining to you here this evening. I'm not going to say I'm Joe Dispenza whatsoever. I like to modify the work that he does specifically to meet the needs of people with migraine. So our meditation is loosely based on his work, but it's with my own spin on it as a neurologist and a lifelong migraine sufferer, and somebody who has taken care of people with headaches for over 30 years. So yes, meditation will be a part of our days, as will yoga. We are also going to have daily lunch and learn sessions where I'll tell you a little bit about the functional medicine and biohacking tools that you can use to relieve headaches. These tools are changing the lives of people with headaches all over the world. This middle picture here is what one of the rooms looks like. You can see there, it's right on the ocean. We have our own little stretch of beach, private beach, which is super nice. I've rented out the entire villa, so it's only us staying there. There will be a maximum of 15, maybe 16 people who can come. The single rooms are already sold out, but the good news for you guys is that the shared rooms are cheaper. Just imagine it like a giant sleepover for you and your friends. So this is the view looking out of the rooms. I have hosted retreats at the sister property to the villa many times before. I've been here on retreat myself, taken my kids multiple times. I've never gotten sick. They use filtered water for everything that they prepare. They are going to make gluten-free meals for us, plus any other allergy or food restrictions that we need to have accommodated. And I think really the best thing about the retreat is the people that you meet. These are people who are similar to you. They are empowered on their own healthcare journey to really do everything they can to improve their headaches. These are not people who've just given up and said, nothing works for me. I've tried everything. Therefore, I'm going to just live with chronic pain. No, these are people who are all about perseverance, continuing to look for tools to enlarge the toolbox that they have to manage their migraines. And they're going to keep going until they find what they want. So if you want further information about that, you can go to headacheretreat.com. There is a little bit of time for vacation too in the afternoons. You have your afternoons to yourself. Last year we went whale watching and had a pretty good time, just sort of getting to know each other better. I've got a couple of special treats lined up for everybody this year. We are actually going to get to do a temazcal, which is kind of a sweat lodge ritual led by a local shaman. I am super excited about that. I have not done one there in like, oh my gosh, almost 10 years. So that'll be fun. We have an opening ceremony where we're going to really let go of the things that have been blocking us from getting to the level of health that we want in our lives. And we are going to finish with a night of salsa dancing lessons, our very last night there. We will have time for some excursions. Like I said, the whale watching. They've got snorkel and kayak gear right there for us. You can, I mean, it's literally steps to the water. So you can spend your afternoon snorkeling. You can hike to a local waterfall. You can take classes at the adjacent property. Lots of fun things to do. So if you have any questions about that, you can, of course, reach out to me. You can go to headacheretreat.com,